dealer on a TV show. But instead of selling narcotics, I peddle comic book information and history. No level of alcohol seems to de-stress me lately, and all I can do is really just watch the world burn around me. There was a war in heaven, a perpetual fight between truth and opinion, between the objective and misinformation, which is really all centered around just one comic character that would forever be linked to me and my name. And no matter how much information I uncovered, the gift of fire, as Captain Ellen gave to the heroes in Superman Beyond, just didn't seem to matter much, at least not in my opinion and my limited outlook of the situation. I received a lot of content creator responses that upset a lot of people in the comic book world. And that was never my intent, because I've been just trying to write a book that was really aimed at helping guide others to some semblance of the right path to answers over the most confusing cosmology of all time. And I was censored heavily. My interviews removed and blocked from public view. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what I said. I will always be on the ethically moral side of it all, even if I'm falling, burning, and my ears are ringing. The pursuit of answers to what I love and find endearing will never cease. No matter how many in Darkseid's army rise up to attack me, even as I fall through forum after forum, set ablaze by those who dislike what I have to say and show them, my plight almost made me take a knee recently. Until I branched out of my comfort zone and began to read comment sections on other content creators' talks over the Final Crisis issues. To my total shock, there are hundreds, potentially thousands of replies on this one instance alone, all favoring every word I have spoken on this comic book series. The Cosmic Armor, Mandrakk, the Overvoid, everything I said is supported and repeated here by users in this random-ass video that reached nearly 500,000 views. And I can't say I'm not jealous, but I'm also immensely happy that there are hundreds of people in just this one content creator's video section alone that fully support every word I've said about the Cosmic Armor and Mandrakk. And users in this section number in the hundreds in just a few of these comment string threads alone. They agree Kaz has plot control and that nothing but Mandrakk can handle it. They agree that the Overvoid is the social alpha and that Mandrakk consumes narratives. They agree on the battle of infinite power between Dax Novu and the Cosmic Armor infinitely repeating itself. Where did all of this come from? Does it not bother anybody that there's that much support behind the scenes and in the cracks, so to speak? Why is it that the experts on certain forums like Quora and Comic Vine and Versus Battles and Reddit are saying the opposite of what these people in most of these content creators' videos comment sections are saying? Well, the reason that there's a differential between them is that these people are the actual comic book readers. They're the ones that have no bias. They read the comic book and they fully support and understand what they read, whereas the other people trying to explain this content in a different way are not the real fans. These are the real fans in this comment section. They know what's going on and what happened. They're not going to lie about it. They're not going to invert it. And they're not going to tell people that it's just their opinion and you're just supposed to accept it, even when their opinion is completely opposite of what happened right on the page. So this will be my last Cosmic Armor video that I think I'm ever going to make, because it's clear that a lot of people are way too emotional over this comic book series, and I would very much like to leave it behind. But before I do, I'm going to give it a proper send-off and read and explain every single detail of why I believe what I believe and why I say what I say. This is an interview from 2022 with Grant Morrison. The DC universe exists within our own universe, he explains. The map is actually showing you where I think the DC universe is, which is a two-dimensional playground. The ground of being of the DC universe is the white page before anything's drawn on it. And then the white page suddenly uses its pristine unself-consciousness and suddenly realizes, oh my god, somebody put a mark on me. What does the mark mean? The mark can mean any story. And suddenly this gigantic consciousness starts to imagine what stories would be like, and it sets up a barrier to protect itself from all of this, the map of the multiverse, is almost like a Buddhist cosmic map. So let's detail that. Why do I believe the flaw is all story? Well, because the author said so. Simple as that. The flaw is seen as all story, and the concept of story is personified as something else in a minute. But we'll get there. Hold on a second. Right now, just hang on to the idea that the overvoid sees the entire flaw of existence as story. Here, in an interview from 2009, many years ago, here's Grant also saying, the overvoid then tries to protect itself from the seething contact with story and imagines a race of beings, angels or monitors, another word for angel of course, to function as an interface between its own giant eternal magnificence and this tiny weird crawling anthill of life and significance that is the DC multiverse. So here we have corroboration between everything I've said pre-2022 to now. So Grant in 2009 agrees with Grant in 2022. That is why I say all of story is the flaw to the overvoid. That's how the overvoid sees everything. It doesn't see it as a mesh of locations and characters and people and specifics. It sees it as the concept of story. Moving onward, if we go back to Final Crisis Superman Beyond, it says right on the page, with no precedent for the concept story, no understanding of the damage story might do to an immense awareness without limits or definition, Monitor has zero defenses. So we have dual interviews from the author and the comic book, all confirming that the cosmic armor is story and the flaw is story. And if that is not enough, we can go to the writer of The Unexpected, who I held an interview with. I asked specifically, what is Mandrakk and what is the cosmic armor? And he replies to me, the cosmic armor is story. If Mandrakk is the ultimate consumer, the ultimate devourer of life, then the armor has to be the opposite. It's story, it's life, it's creation. So now we have two different authors saying the cosmic armor, story, and all of creation, existence, are exactly the same thing. Now, if that's not enough, we can go to Ted Kendrick, who wrote the Legacies series, which is phenomenal, by the way. And Ted was nice enough to write me up a little document that he's going to help me with my book in. This will be featured inside of my publication that hopefully will come out sometime later this year. It's a book about comic mythology and history, and Ted was gracious enough to write up a thesis for me that I'm going to be including inside of my book. So here also, Ted Kendrick also believes that Cosmic Armor Superman is all story and Mandrakk is anti-story, non-story. Is that enough? Do we need 4 confirmations of this? Because he goes further in his thesis where he says, Superman and Ultraman clearly understand their next step. They collided with their particles of matter and antimatter as a hate crime meets a selfless act, which Captain Atom used to fuse their symmetries with the thought robot. Defined by Novu as a living weapon of pure thought and story, also known as the cosmic armor. Now if we run back to the same page in Superman Beyond, at the bottom of the page, after it says that story infected the overvoid, it tells you a little bit more of details in the ending of this page. The mystery of the Silent Sentinel haunts Monitor, infects the Immaculate Intelligence with questions, speculation, pestilential crawling narratives. Who is the Silent Sentinel? That's the cosmic armor. What did the Silent Sentinel do? It infected Monitor Mind. What infected Monitor Mind? All of story and the flaw. The story, the flaw, existence, and the cosmic armor are all exactly the same thing. It even tells you speculations, pestilential crawling narratives, legend takes root, and story like contagion spreads unchecked. So this is confirmed by multiple authors, experts, an editor, editorial, and the comic books as well. Now, if that's not enough, then there's no reason to further debate this with anybody else. If you can deny that much information and consider this just an interpretation, if me explaining this and reading off of the panels and reading word for word verbatim what the interviews say from actual experts who worked on the content, then this is no longer a debate. It's not a real discussion. The other side is simply citing any facts that they don't like are just up for reinterpretation. And at that point, it's no longer a discussion. It becomes a shill. When you shill information, when you invert any information that you dislike, when you're not respectful to the content repeatedly telling you X is true, you're no longer arguing and just debating with somebody. You're in pure denial. And this is why I'm trying to help as many people as I can. And it's why I like to talk about this series specifically. It's why I fell into the abyss, so to speak, because there's so much misinformation out there. People just do not like that the cosmic armor Superman is the embodiment of the entire flaw of existence. And now, as we said, in this cosmology, in this version of Final Crisis, the entire flaw contains literally everything. Everything there was is in a jar, according to Grant in this interview. Everything there ever was is in the jar. That doesn't mean that there's another multiverse outside of the source wall. There's nothing outside of the source wall except Monitor Mind and the unknowable. That's it. That's what the map said. Now, if you want to interpret that a different way and inject whatever other data you want to be out there too, that's fine. That's totally fine, and I respect that. You can make up whatever data you want. As I have said many times, I'm going to stick with what the authors, the editors, the guidebook, the slipcover, and other content creators and experts have told me. That's the path I'm going to take, and I would love to know in the comments, which path do you want to take? Do you want to listen to all the information that I've shared with you? Or do you want to be on the side that considers me reading off of these panels as just an interpretation of the media that we're discussing? It's totally up to you. Okay, so we have a lot of data on Cosmic Armor Superman, but what about Mandrakk? Let's see what the content creators have to say about him. This is an interview from Grant Morrison just recently, also in 2022. The Final Crisis, as I saw it for a paper universe like DC's, would be the terminal war between is and isn't, between story and the blank page. What would happen if the void of the page took issue with the quality of material imposed upon it and decided to fight back by spontaneously generating a living concept capable of devouring narrative itself? A nihilistic cosmic vampire whose only dream was to drain the multiverse dry of story material, then lie bloated beneath a dead, dying sun. Okay, so let's unpack that. Where is Mandrakk from? The Overvoid. What was he sent in to do? It was his job to detail everything in the flaw, all of existence. And as a byproduct, after he went bad, he would start to devour all of the narrative of that entire flaw. So where did Mandrakk actually come from? The comic book page itself made its own character to send in to the ink and the art. That is not me saying that. That is not reinterpretation. That is what the author said the context of Mandrakk is. The original flaw is all story in Final Crisis Superman Beyond. This little blot, this little thing that the Overvoid sees is everything that the Overvoid isn't. So every single character, every concept, every energy, every anything that is not the Overvoid is this flaw. That is how the Overvoid sees it. Everything on the cosmic map is the flaw, and it's the antithesis of what the Overvoid is. So Mandrakk was sent in to investigate the ink and the artwork on a meta level. Everything except Mandrakk in DC's history is considered ink and text on a page that Mandrakk was sent in to detail and figure out for the Overvoid. Let's hop over to Twitter and ask Tim Sheridan and everybody else who worked on the Infinite Frontier series what would happen between Raven and Perpetua's like. And it turns out that the authors have already confirmed that Perpetua was absorbed by Unkindness Raven. To which I replied, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that she actually did that. What about Mandrakk and the Overvoid? And the authors replied, nope, probably not them. We kind of forgot about them. Definitely not them. Whereas prior, this same author confirmed that Michael and Lucifer and the Presence were also taken out, along with Perpetua, by Raven. So everybody was taken out by Raven except Mandrakk and the Overvoid. That's the authors of the Infinite Frontier confirming that on Twitter. So here's another interview from Grant Morrison that recently came out. In my view, the general rule of thumb is that each of the alternate worlds should be treated as its own potential franchise rather than squandered as disposable cannon fodder for the 19th nervous rerun of Crisis on Infinite Earths. The major comics universe, Earth 8 for instance, should reflect the actual Marvel universe. So why am I even reading this? Well, again, on the cosmic map, all of those bubbles are actual continuities. Once more, not my reinterpretation of the text. That is exactly what the author said the context was. And if you don't believe me, here's an 8-second clip of Grant explaining this live on video.
A train junction where these lines, each of which represented different universes, meaning different comic books that contradicted one another.
Once more, this is not my reinterpretation. This is me merely copy and pasting answers given by the content creators without changing the context, without adding my own into it, without doing anything. All I am doing is reading off of the papers. Once more, another interview back in 2009 with a now gone website called Newsarama. You can't go to this website anymore because the website was shut down. You can, however, find it in the Google cache if you actually try to go look for it. So what Grant says is, it's also final in the sense that it's all about endings and apocalypses. It shows the DCU degrading, drained of all meaning, drained of even stories and characters, reduced to nothing but darkness, a mute Superman, and a greedy vampire god. We even break down the conventional storytelling modes at the end until there's nothing familiar left in an effort to convey what the end of a universe might feel like. So what about Mandrakk's powers? Okay, well, let's start off with the fact that he has infinite reserves of energy. Actually, he doesn't even need energy. He just gifts himself more of whatever conceptual power that he wants. And also, the cosmic armor has demonstrated this live in battle. No speculation, no reinterpretation. There is no other reinterpretation of what happened. They keep granting themselves infinitely more power to one-up the enemy. He gets more powerful, therefore the other side gets more powerful. And they kept doing this over and over and over. So why mention this? Well, what about Perpetua and the Darkest Night? Because apparently a lot of people believe Perpetua reigns far, far above Mandrakk. Well, Perpetua in an amped state, as well as the Darkest Night, both say that they're completely running out of energy and they're getting tired. They cannot gift themselves random new energy. And if you don't believe that, here's a picture from the recent guidebook that confirms that Perpetua has to leech energy just to sustain herself. So once more, comic book and editorial and guidebook all confirm the same thing. This is not my reinterpretation. And if you believe Pariah using the Great Darkness was stronger than Mandrakk, here's a clip from the Josh Williamson series where Pariah says he simply is losing power and cannot gift himself more, as Mandrakk and Cosmic Armor demonstrated live in combat in dire situations. Again, Mandrakk has nothing to do with Perpetua. Mandrakk was sent in by the Overvoid. Mandrakk is the original probe that Monitor Mind sent in to investigate the flaw. Not a son of Mar-Novu, not a grandson of Perpetua, not related to Perpetua at all. Back to the original guidebook in 2014. A flaw that is everything that perfection is not. Dax Novu sent in to investigate all of existence, everything there ever was, in a jar. That includes every single multiverse there ever was for every single franchise, not just DC. And as we heard, Grant even talks about how Earth 8 is the entire legitimate Marvel franchise, alongside of all the other ones that just aren't pictured because logically you can't draw infinite franchises on a single picture. Pure logic. Everything that the Overvoid is not is that jar. That jar was on nil. Everything else is inside of that jar. Literally everything. Every character, every energy, every concept, all things. Back into Superman Beyond, it tells you right on the comic book page. Dax Novu, Mandrakk, is the corrupted side of Monitor. What is the context for Monitor in this comic book? Well, it tells you 13 times in the same issue that the context for Monitor is Monitor Mind and not Mar-Novu. You are the corrupted side of Monitor. Monitor Mind. You're the corrupted side of the Overvoid. Confirmed in the comic, confirmed by 2 different authors, by a slipcover and a guidebook, and repeated interviews. Well, what about Darkest Night in his most powerful state versus Mandrakk? Okay, well, let's run back to the end of Death Metal, where the World's Forge is currently dying and dim, and it's very, very weak compared to its normal powered self. It's losing energy. It's a fraction of its normal self. This forge is visited by Darkseid and Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman takes a short bath in the forge and comes out with a fraction of the forge's power. So the forge is already broken and not 100%. It's very dim is the wording that they used in the comics. It's not at full power. So the already fractured power of the Forge gifted an even smaller amount of its power to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman then uses this power to defeat the strongest version of the Darkest Night. Whereas we jump back to the Unexpected series from 2018, once again written by Steve Orlando, we find out that the Forge specifically gave Neon and Alden all of its creation and all of its destructive power. And the Forge during this time was at 100% capacity. It wasn't dim, it wasn't dying, it was in full force. We know that the fractional power of Wonder Woman is nothing compared to Alden and Neon, because it tells you in this comic book that Wonder Woman cannot create in the same way that the Darkest Night can. So she doesn't have the full power of creation and destruction, just as Alden and Neon did. But Alden and Neon, also with amps on Bleed Space and Element X and Nth Metal, still couldn't put a dent in a weakened version of Mandrakk. So those are the reasons why I support Cosmic Armor and Mandrakk being as powerful as they are. Not because of my own interpretations, but because the editors, the writers, content creators, other experts, the slipcover, editorial, and the comic books themselves all confirmed every single word that I have said for years and years and years. Now it's up to you guys to either listen or not. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You can deny any information that you want, or you can agree with me. You can be on the side that promotes everything that I've said because I'm reading verbatim, word for word off of the panels, or you can go to fan theorists, content views, and videos and theorize what the answer might be. And you might come away with a content creator having an opinion that is completely inverted from all of the text that I just read to you. Some people are like that. They can read all of that information. They can directly read that the Overvoid sent in Mandrakk from exterior the artwork, from the comic book page itself, down into the narrative, to consume all of the narrative and to detail all of it, and they will take that in their own way. They will take that as an interpretation that Perpetua and the Darkest Night are way, way beyond that. Why? to this day, nobody has ever explained it. It's just a viewpoint and a preference that people have. But as I showed you in the recent video clip that I used earlier in this video, there are hundreds, potentially thousands of actual comic readers who have no bias. They have no bias whatsoever and told it exactly like it is. If you go looking, you will find a lot of people like this. If you go looking on expert forums and comic book debater forums, you will not find this. And there's a reason for that. It's because the comic book debaters do not like the hierarchy as it was shown. They simply do not like that the cosmic armor is a reference to the flaw, and the flaw is all story personified. That includes every single one of their favorite characters. All of your favorite characters are fighting together to stop Mandrakk. That was the point of the final crisis. All story versus non-story. Everything that is a part of story inside of the flaw. And we found out that everything inside of the flaw includes DC and every other fictional franchise, and also a meta-contextual version of the real world. So if that isn't enough for you, I hope I've educated you on at least some things that you can head to other content creators' chat sections and educate them and show them the scans that I've showed you, so everybody can be fully educated on both sides of the coin. You can have all the data from my end and do with it what you want. If you still want to reinterpret after you have all that information, great. Thumbs up, good for you. If you do agree with me and you do care that this is not reinterpretation when I read directly off of the panels, directly from the guidebooks, directly from the author, and when I show live videos of the author explaining something, then please show me some support in the comments. Show me some support with some likes and pass around my video so other people can become educated on subjects that they've been misled on for many, many years.
One day you're gonna figure out that everything they taught you was a lie. Watch the world burn!